My name is Drew Holbrook, and for 15 years I believed I had a perfect marriage. I was wrong about everything. It started at my nephew's wedding, a ballroom full of champagne and lies, when my wife Vanessa whispered 4 words that shattered my world, I don't want to look taken. What did I find when I finally looked? Her secret Instagram account full of hotel rooms I'd never seen. Text messages planning my financial destruction. A lawyer already hired to take my daughter. Within 72 hours, my accounts were frozen, CPS was at my door, and my wife was running for the airport with my child. And through all of it, Vanessa sat at our granite kitchen island every morning, sipping coffee, texting her lover, completely convinced I was too stupid to fight back. She was wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, if you enjoy stories about justice and family boundaries, take a second to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story. Where are you watching from right now? And what time is it there? Drop a comment and let me know. You know what's funny about betrayal? It's not the knife in your back that hurts most. It's realizing everyone else saw it coming except you. My name is Drew Holbrook and I'm apparently the biggest fool in Minneapolis. The Marriott ballroom sparkled like a jewelry store robbery. All crystal chandeliers and gold tablecloths. My nephew's wedding reception was in full swing. 200 guests pretending they weren't already drunk on overpriced champagne. I stood watching my wife of 15 years work the room like a politician at a fundraiser. Vanessa glided between tables in her emerald dress, the one that cost more than my first car. At 38, she still turned heads, still made other men straighten their ties when she laughed. Tonight, she was laughing a lot, especially when she talked to Trent. Trent was her business partner at Morrison & Associates, the PR firm where Vanessa had climbed from junior account manager to senior partner in record time. He was also the kind of guy who wore Armani suits to barbecues and called everyone champ. His perfectly styled hair probably cost more to maintain than most people's car payments. "You're staring again," Cal whispered, sliding up beside me with 2 beers. Cal Henderson had been my best friend since college, a straight-talking electrician who saw through, like X-ray vision. "Just admiring my wife's dedication to networking," I said, accepting the beer. "She's been networking with Trent for 3 hours straight." Cal followed my gaze to where Vanessa stood with her hand on Trent's forearm. Both of them leaning in close like they were sharing state secrets. "Drew, buddy, you seeing what I'm seeing?" "What am I seeing?" "Cal, your wife acting like she's single." The music shifted to something slow and romantic, perfect timing. I straightened my tie, not Armani, but decent, and walked across the dance floor toward my wife. "Dance with your husband?" I asked, extending my hand. Vanessa's smile flickered like a broken neon sign. "Oh, Drew, I'm in the middle of something important with Trent. We're discussing the Morrison account. It's our nephew's wedding. The Morrison account can wait 3 minutes." Trent's grin was all teeth, no warmth. "Actually, champ, we're at a critical juncture. You understand?" I didn't move. "Dance with your husband." Vanessa's cheeks flushed, but she took my hand with the enthusiasm of someone handling a dead fish. "On the dance floor." I pulled her close, breathed in her familiar perfume, Chanel No. 5, the one I bought her for Christmas. "You look beautiful tonight," I said. She stiffened in my arms. "Drew, people are watching." "Good. Let them see how much I love my wife." I leaned in to kiss her the way I had 1,000 times before. She turned her head sharply, my lips barely grazing her cheek. "Stop," she hissed. "You're embarrassing me. I don't want to look taken." The words hit like a slap. Around us, couples swayed to the music, lost in their own little worlds. My world had just shifted off its axis. "You don't want to look taken," I repeated slowly. "You know what I mean. This is a professional event. People are watching. Your family is watching. My family is watching. Just can we not do this here? I stopped dancing right there in the middle of the floor with 200 people pretending not to stare. I reached down, twisted my wedding ring, the simple gold band I'd worn for 15 years, and pulled it off my finger. The silence seemed to spread outward like ripples on a pond. I placed the ring gently on the nearest table, right next to the centerpiece of white roses. Problem solved, I said quietly. Vanessa's eyes went wide. Drew, what are you doing? Exactly what you wanted. Now you don't look taken. The whispers started immediately. I could hear them like static electricity in the air. Did you see what Drew just did? Oh my God. He just took off his ring at his own nephew's wedding. I walked away, leaving my wife standing alone on the dance floor in her emerald dress, looking anything but taken. Cal intercepted me at the bar. Holy __, Drew. You actually did it. Did what? Grew a backbone. I ordered a whiskey. Neat. 15 years California. 15 years I've been married to that woman and she doesn't want to look taken. You know what this means, right? I knocked back the whiskey, feeling it burn. Yeah, it means I'm about to find out what she's really been up to. Across the room, Vanessa had rejoined Trent and her little circle of friends, Mindy and Tara, two women who treated gossip like an Olympic sport. They were huddled together now, shooting glances in my direction. Mindy, a blonde real estate agent with too much Botox, was gesturing wildly. Tara, a yoga instructor who'd never met a crystal she didn't believe in, kept shaking her head. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I didn't need to. Body language told the whole story. Vanessa was in damage control mode. Trent was playing the supportive colleague, and her friends were eating it up like sharks smelling blood. My daughter Sophie appeared at my elbow. At 16, she had her mother's beauty, but thankfully my __, detector. Dad, you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. Just having a moment of clarity. She glanced at the table where my wedding ring sat, abandoned among the roses. Mom's really upset. I imagine she is. Trent's comforting her. I bet he is. Sophie studied my face with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. Dad, what's going on? Really? Before I could answer, Vanessa's mother, Gloria, descended on us like a well-dressed vulture. At 65, Gloria Morrison, still carried herself like the society queen she'd once been back when her late husband's construction company actually made money. Drew Holbrook, what is the meaning of this spectacle? She demanded, her voice carrying across 3 tables. Hello, Gloria. Enjoying the wedding? Don't you dare deflect. You've humiliated my daughter in front of everyone. Actually, I think your daughter humiliated herself. I just made it official. Gloria's face went red beneath her powder. How dare you? Vanessa is a saint for putting up with you all these years. A saint. Saints don't usually refuse to dance with their husbands. But what do I know? I'm just an architect. A failed architect? Gloria snapped. Living off my daughter's success. That one stung because it wasn't entirely wrong. My firm had struggled the past few years while Vanessa's career skyrocketed. But I'd never stopped working, never stopped trying. At least I'm not living off lies, I said quietly. Gloria's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Ask your daughter. I walked away, leaving Gloria sputtering behind me. The reception was winding down anyway, guests starting to filter out into the Minneapolis night. I found a quiet corner and watched the cleanup begin. That's when I saw them. Vanessa and Trent had slipped away from the main ballroom into one of the smaller conference rooms. Through the glass doors, I could see them talking intensely. Trent had his hands on her shoulders. She was crying or pretending to cry. With Vanessa, it was hard to tell the difference. I moved closer, staying in the shadows. The music from the ballroom covered my footsteps. I pressed myself against the wall next to the conference room door, which was slightly ajar. "Can't keep doing this," Vanessa was saying. "He's getting suspicious. After tonight, he won't be a problem." Trent replied. "Trust me, baby. Everything's going according to plan, but the ring thing in front of everyone actually works in our favor. Now everyone thinks he's unstable, jealous. When we make our move, no one will be surprised. What if he fights the divorce? With what lawyer? With what money? Vanessa, sweetheart, we've been planning this for months. Your assets are protected. The business is secure. And after tonight's little performance, you'll have witnesses to his erratic behavior." My blood turned to ice water. "I just feel guilty sometimes. Vanessa said he's Sophie's father. Sophie will be fine. She'll be better off without him. Kids are resilient. And you're sure about the prenup loophole?" "Positive. Infidelity clause works both ways. Remember, all we need is evidence of his misconduct, and you keep everything. The house, the business, full custody. He'll be lucky to get supervised visitation." I'd heard enough. More than enough. I backed away from the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. 15 years of marriage, and my wife had been planning my destruction like a military campaign. But here's the thing about being an architect. You learn to see the flaws in other people's plans. And their plan had a very big flaw. They thought I was stupid. The next morning hit me like a hangover without the fun of getting drunk first. I sat at our granite kitchen island staring at my coffee while Vanessa bustled around in her silk robe getting ready for another day of networking. "We need to talk about last night," she said without looking at me. "Do we? That little stunt you pulled embarrassed me in front of everyone. My mother called 3 times already." "I'm sure she did." Vanessa finally turned around and I got a good look at her face. No tears, no red eyes. Whatever crying she'd done for Trent's benefit had been purely theatrical. "Drew, I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but this jealousy thing has to stop." "Jealousy? Trent is my business partner. That's all. We work together. We have to maintain a professional relationship." "Professional relationship." I repeated the words like I was tasting them. "Is that what we're calling it?" Her eyes flashed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just making sure I understand the terminology." She moved closer and for a second I caught a glimpse of the woman I'd married. The one who used to laugh at my jokes and steal my fries and fall asleep on my shoulder during movies. "Baby, I love you," she said, reaching for my hand. "You know that, right? You're just being paranoid." "Am I?" "Yes, and it's not attractive." She kissed my forehead like I was a child who'd had a bad dream, then headed upstairs to get dressed. I heard the shower start and I made my decision. Vanessa's phone sat on the counter, plugged into its charger. She'd always been careless with it, secure in the knowledge that I trusted her completely. Past tense, trusted. I knew her passcode. Sophie's birthday. The phone unlocked on the first try. Her text messages were a gold mine. The thread with Trent went back months. I scrolled through, my coffee growing cold as I read message after message of planning, scheming, and explicit details that made my stomach turn. "Trent, can't wait for tonight. Miss your hands on me. Vanessa, Drew's working late again. Come over after 9. Trent, your husband's such a loser. How did you stand him this long? Vanessa, not much longer. Lawyer says, we need more evidence of erratic behavior. Trent, last night at the hotel was incredible. You're amazing, Vanessa. I know. The shower was still running. I kept scrolling, screenshotting everything, forwarding the most damning messages to my own phone, then deleting the sent items from her account. But the text messages were nothing compared to what I found when I opened her Instagram. Vanessa had a second account, not her public one with family photos and inspirational quotes, but a private one under the name V. Morrison. The photos there told a different story. Vanessa in lingerie I'd never seen. Vanessa in hotel rooms I'd never been to. Vanessa with Trent at restaurants, concerts, weekend getaways. The comments were even worse. Mindy_real estate. Girl, you're living your best life. Drew has no idea, does he? Terra yoga life, you deserve this happiness. Some people are just meant to be together. Trent Mollery PR. Beautiful as always. Can't wait for our business trip to Chicago. V. Morrison. Soon, baby. Soon we won't have to hide anymore. The shower shut off. I quickly forwarded the most incriminating photos to myself, closed the apps, and put her phone back exactly where I'd found it. When Vanessa came downstairs 20 minutes later, dressed in a power suit that probably cost more than most people's rent, I was reading the newspaper like nothing had happened. I'll be late tonight, she said, grabbing her phone and keys. Client dinner with Trent, among others. It's the Morrison account. You know how important it is. Sure. The Morrison account. She paused at the door. Drew, are you okay? You seem different. Just tired. Didn't sleep well. Maybe you should see someone. Talk to someone about the paranoia. Maybe I should. After she left, I sat in the silence of our McMansion. 5,000 square feet of granite countertops and hardwood floors that suddenly felt like a mausoleum. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built was a lie. But I wasn't going to roll over and play dead. I called Cal. Drew, what's wrong? You sound like someone died. Someone did. My marriage. Can you meet me for lunch? Hell yes. O'Malley's. O'Malley's was a dive bar that served the best burgers in Minneapolis and didn't judge you for drinking whiskey at noon. Cal was already there when I arrived, sitting in our usual booth with a beer and a concerned expression. You look like, __, he said by way of greeting. Feel worse. I slid him my phone. Look at these. Cal scrolled through the screenshots, his expression growing darker with each message. When he got to the photos, he actually whistled. Jesus, Drew. How long has this been going on? Months, maybe longer. They've been planning to destroy me, Cal, divorce, custody, the whole 9 yards. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'm not going down without a fight. Cal handed back my phone. You need a lawyer. I need evidence. Real evidence. Something that will hold up in court. What kind of evidence? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Unknown. If you want to see what your wife is really up to, check the penthouse at the Lark Hotel. Tonight, midnight. Come alone. I showed Cal the message. That's either a trap or a gift, he said. Only one way to find out. The Lark Hotel was downtown Minneapolis's newest luxury establishment. The kind of place where a bottle of water cost $20, and the doorman wore better suits than I did. At 11:45 p.m., Cal and I sat in his electrician's van across the street watching the entrance. This is stupid, Cal said for the 10th time. We should have hired a private investigator. With what money? Besides, how hard can it be? Famous last words. At 11:58, a familiar Maserati pulled up to the valet stand. Trent got out first, then walked around to open the passenger door for Vanessa. She was wearing the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one she'd claimed was too fancy to wear to dinner with me. They walked into the hotel like they owned the place. Penthouse, I said. That means top floor. That means security cameras, key card access, and probably guards. You're an electrician. You know, buildings, Cal sighed. I wire buildings. I don't break into them. There's a first time for everything. Getting into the Lark turned out to be easier than expected. The service entrance was propped open by a maintenance cart, and Cal's electrician uniform got us past the one security guard we encountered. Routine inspection, Cal told him. Complaints about flickering lights on the upper floors. The elevator required a key card for the penthouse level, but Cal had a solution for that, too. He removed the panel, crossed a couple of wires, and the elevator lurched upward. "Remind me to never let you wire my house," I whispered. "Shut up and focus." The penthouse level had only one suite, accessible through ornate double doors at the end of a marble hallway. We could hear music playing inside, something smooth and jazzy that probably cost extra on the room service menu. "Now what?" Cal whispered. I pointed to a maintenance balcony outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Now we get creative." The balcony was narrow and 20 stories above the street, but it offered a perfect view into the penthouse suite. Through the windows, I could see my wife and her lover in a scene that would have made a soap opera writer blush. I took photos, video, enough evidence to bury them both. That's when the security alarm went off. "Time to go," Cal shouted over the blaring siren. We ran for the stairwell as heavy footsteps echoed from the elevator. 20 flights of stairs and dress shoes, not recommended. By the time we reached the parking garage, my lungs were on fire and Cal was cursing creatively. "The van," he gasped, pointing to where we'd parked. We were 50 feet away when the security guard appeared, flashlight in one hand, radio in the other. "Stop! Security! Run!" I shouted. We made it to the van as more guards poured into the garage. Cal gunned the engine and we peeled out into the Minneapolis night, tires squealing like a movie chase scene. "That was insane," Cal shouted, but he was grinning. I was grinning, too, despite everything. For the first time in months, I felt alive. "Pull over," I said. "What? Why?" "Trust me." Cal parked in an alley behind a closed restaurant. I got out, walked back to where Trent's Maserati sat in the hotel garage. They'd be upstairs for hours, too busy with their business meeting to notice. I took out my house key and drew a long, deep scratch along the driver's side from headlight to tail light. Then, for good measure, I opened the gas tank and stuffed it full of the hotel's complimentary mints I'd grabbed from the lobby. "Feel better?" Cal asked when I got back in the van. "Much?" When I got home at 2 a.m., Vanessa's side of the bed was still empty. Her client dinner was running very late indeed. I uploaded all the photos and videos to a secure cloud account, then sent copies to 3 different email addresses I'd set up for exactly this purpose. Then I sent one more email to Marlene Mollery, Trent's wife, whom I'd found through social media. The subject line was simple: "About your husband." I attached the best photos and added a single line. "Thought you should know." By morning, the war would begin. But tonight, for the first time in months, I slept like a baby. The phone started ringing at 6 a.m. First, it was Vanessa calling from her car with panic in her voice. "Drew, something terrible has happened. Someone broke into Trent's car last night, vandalized it. The police think it might be connected to that security incident at the Lark." "That's awful," I said, making coffee with one hand and checking my email with the other. Marlene Mollery had replied. "Thank you. We need to talk." "You don't understand," Vanessa continued. "They think it was you." "Me? Why would they think that?" Because of how you acted at the wedding, the ring thing. People are talking, Drew. They're saying you've been acting unstable." "Unstable?" I tasted the word. "That's an interesting choice. This isn't a joke." "If the police, Vanessa, where are you calling from?" Silence. "Then my car. I'm driving to work." "From where?" More silence. "Have a good day at the office, honey. Try not to work too late." I hung up and immediately called Marlene Mollery. Mrs. Mullally, this is Drew Holbrook. I believe you wanted to talk. Her voice was ice-cold fury. Oh, we're going to talk. All right. Meet me at Starbucks on Hennepin in an hour and bring everything you have. Marlene Mullally was nothing like I'd expected. Where Vanessa was all curves and silk scarves, Marlene was sharp angles and steel. A corporate lawyer who looked like she could cut glass with her stare. How long? She asked without preamble, sliding into the booth across from me. How long? What? How long have they been screwing? Based on the messages. At least 6 months, maybe longer. She nodded like she was confirming a suspicion. Trent's been different. Secretive. New clothes, new cologne, working late every night. I hired a private investigator last month. What did you find? Not enough for court, but enough to know my husband is a lying piece of, __, she leaned forward. Show me what you have. I showed her everything. The text messages, the Instagram photos, the hotel videos. With each image, her expression grew colder. This is good, she said. Finally. This is very good. Good enough for divorce court. Good enough to destroy them both. She smiled and it wasn't pleasant. Drew, how would you like to team up? I have resources. You have evidence. Together, we can make them pay. What kind of resources? I know things about Trent's business dealings that would make your wife very uncomfortable. Things that could shut down Morrison and Associates permanently. What kind of things? The kind that get you investigated by the state licensing board. The kind that make clients run for the hills. She slid a business card across the table. Think about it. But don't think too long. I'm filing for divorce next week, and I'd prefer to coordinate our attacks. That afternoon, I went to work for the first time in 3 days. My architectural firm, Holbrook Design, occupied a small office in a converted warehouse in northeast Minneapolis. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. My assistant, Jenny, looked up when I walked in. Drew, thank God. The phone's been ringing all morning. Good news or bad news? Depends. 3 potential clients want to meet about new projects, but Vanessa called 6 times and she sounds upset. I bet she does. I spent the day buried in blueprints, trying to lose myself in the clean lines and logical angles of architecture. Buildings made sense. People didn't. At 5 p.m., my phone rang. Sophie. Dad, can you pick me up from school? Mom was supposed to, but she didn't show. Of course. Where is she? I don't know. She's been weird all day. Crying, then angry, then crying again. And there's some lady here who wants to talk to her about Dad's car. What lady? A police officer. Dad, what's going on? I found Sophie waiting by the flag pole at Southwest High School, backpack slung over her shoulder and worry written across her face. The police cruiser in the parking lot confirmed my suspicions. Dad, are you in trouble? Not the way you mean, but the police are probably just asking routine questions. Sometimes when people get divorced, things get complicated. Sophie stopped walking. Divorced? __, I'd said too much. Sophie, your mother and I were having some problems because of Trent. My daughter was too smart for her own good. What do you know about Trent? I know Mom's been texting him all the time. I know she smiles different when she talks about work. And I know you've been sleeping in the guest room for 2 weeks. We sat in my truck in the school parking lot. And I tried to figure out how to explain that her mother was a cheating liar without actually saying those words. Sometimes adults make bad choices, I said finally. And sometimes those choices hurt the people they love. Is Mom making bad choices? Yeah, sweetheart. I think she is. Sophie nodded like this confirmed something she'd already suspected. Are you going to fight back? What makes you ask that? Because you're different. Since the wedding, you seem, I don't know, stronger, maybe. Maybe I am. That evening, Vanessa came home like a tornado in designer heels, slamming doors and muttering under her breath. She found me in my study working on a design for a new office building. The police questioned me today, she announced about Trent's car. That must have been unpleasant. They think you did it, Drew. They think you followed us to the hotel and vandalized his car out of jealousy. Did you tell them you were at the hotel? She faltered. We were there for business, a client meeting at midnight. It was a dinner that ran late in the penthouse suite. Her face went white. How did you know about the penthouse? Lucky guess. Vanessa sank into the chair across from my desk. And for a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married instead of the stranger she'd become. Drew, I think we need counseling. Counseling to work through your trust issues, your paranoia, this obsession with Trent, my obsession with Trent. Stop repeating everything I say. This is serious. You're scaring me. I saved my work and closed the laptop. Vanessa, do you remember our wedding vows? What? Our wedding vows 15 years ago. Do you remember what you promised, Drew? That's not forsaking all others. That was the phrase, wasn't it? Forsaking all others. Tears started down her cheeks, and for a second, I almost believed they were real. I love you, she whispered. I've always loved you. But you love him more. It's not like that. Then what is it like? She couldn't answer or wouldn't. I want you to move out. I said quietly. What? Tonight, pack a bag and go stay with your mother or Mindy or Trent. I don't care. But I want you out of this house. You can't kick me out. This is my house, too. Actually, it's not. Check the deed. My name only. I bought it before we got married. Remember? Her tears dried up fast. You bastard. There's the Vanessa I know. She stood up, shaking with rage. You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you've got everything figured out. I'm learning. Well, learn this. I'm not going anywhere. This is my home. Sophie is my daughter. And if you try to throw me out, I'll make your life hell. Too late. You already have. She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. An hour later, I heard her car start and pull out of the driveway. When Sophie came downstairs for breakfast the next morning, she found me making pancakes and coffee. Where's Mom? She's staying at Grandma Gloria's for a while. Sophie poured herself orange juice and sat at the kitchen island. Dad? Yeah, good. The country club called that afternoon. Mr. Holbrook. This is Janet Morrison from Woodhill Country Club. I'm afraid we need to discuss your membership status. Woodhill was where Vanessa had insisted we join 3 years ago. Despite the fact that golf bored me and the monthly dues were astronomical. What about my membership? There have been complaints about your recent behavior. The board feels it might be best if you took a temporary leave of absence. Complaints from whom? I'm not at liberty to say, but there are concerns about your stability, your treatment of your wife, and some recent legal troubles. Legal troubles. The police investigation into the vandalism incident. Mr. Holbrook. Woodhill maintains a certain standard. Let me guess, Trent Mallory is on the board. Silence. Tell the board I'll save them the trouble. I quit. But quitting wasn't enough. Not anymore. Saturday night was the club's annual charity gala. Black tie, $500 a plate. All of Minneapolis's elite pretending to care about underprivileged children while they gorged themselves on lobster and champagne. Vanessa would be there. Trent would be there. And so would I. I rented a tux and hired a photographer, a freelancer who specialized in candid event photography, and didn't ask too many questions about why I wanted comprehensive coverage of the evening's activities. The Woodhill Ballroom looked like a movie set, all white linens and ice sculptures and flowers that cost more than most people's cars. I walked in at 8:30, fashionably late, and immediately spotted my targets. Vanessa wore red, a dress I'd never seen before, probably bought with money from our joint account. She was holding court at a table near the front, surrounded by Mindy, Tara, and half a dozen other women who treated gossip like currency. Trent worked the room in his perfectly tailored tux, shaking hands and slapping backs like he was running for mayor. Every few minutes, he'd catch Vanessa's eye and smile. I found an empty table in the back and ordered a whiskey double. The evening's program included dinner, dancing, a silent auction, and speeches from various board members about the importance of giving back to the community. Standard charity gala, __, but I wasn't there for the program. At 10:15, during the dancing portion of the evening, I made my move. The club's AV system was controlled from a booth overlooking the ballroom. The technician was a kid who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Probably a college student earning beer money. "Excuse me," I said, walking into the booth. "I'm Drew Holbrook. I need to make an announcement." "I'm sorry, sir, but only board members can." I handed him $500 cash. "Emergency family situation. 5 minutes. That's all I need. Money talks." The kid pocketed the bills and handed me the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice booming across the ballroom. "If I could have your attention for just a moment." The music stopped. Conversations died. 500 faces turned toward the AV booth. "My name is Drew Holbrook, and I have something I'd like to share with all of you tonight." In the crowd below, I could see Vanessa's face, white as her table linens. Trent was pushing through the crowd, probably trying to reach the booth. "Many of you know my wife, Vanessa. Beautiful woman, successful businesswoman, pillar of the community." I paused. "Also, as it turns out, a lying, cheating, __, gasps echoed through the ballroom. Someone screamed. Phones came out. Everyone wanted to record this train wreck. "Now, I know what you're thinking, Drew. That's a serious accusation. Do you have proof?" "Well, funny. You should ask." I nodded to my photographer who'd positioned himself near the main screen used for the silent auction presentations. The first photo appeared. Vanessa and Trent in the hotel room, her dress around her waist, his hands on her body. More screams. Someone shouted, "Oh my God." Vanessa was pushing through the crowd toward the exit, but there were too many people. "That's my wife," I continued conversationally with her business partner, Trent Mollery. Who by the way is also married. His wife Marlene is here tonight too. Wave Marlene. Marlene, positioned strategically near the front, raised her hand. She was smiling. The photos kept coming. Hotel rooms, restaurants, text messages blown up large enough for everyone to read. The crowd was in chaos now. Some people trying to leave, others pushing closer to get a better look. "The best part," I said, "is that they've been planning this for months, planning to destroy me, take my daughter, steal my assets, all while pretending to be upstanding members of this community." Trent had finally reached the AV booth. He burst through the door, his perfect hair disheveled, his face red with rage. "You bastard," he shouted, lunging for the microphone. I stepped aside and he crashed into the control board, sending feedback, screeching through the sound system. Now, Trent," I said, still speaking into the microphone. "Violence isn't the answer. Although, I have to say, you look a lot less impressive with your clothes on." He came at me again, and this time, I was ready. 15 years of marriage to Vanessa had taught me how to take a hit, but architecture school had taught me how to throw one. My fist connected with his perfectly straight nose and blood exploded across his white shirt front. "That's for my wife," I said. He staggered backward, hands to his face, and I hit him again. "That's for my daughter." Security was pushing through the crowd now, but they were too late. I grabbed the microphone one last time. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. The bar is still open, and remember, all proceeds go to charity. Have a wonderful evening." I walked out of the booth, past the unconscious Trent, through the crowd of shocked socialites, and into the Minneapolis night. Behind me, the charity gala had turned into something much more entertaining. My phone was ringing before I reached my truck. "California. Drew, what the hell did you just do?" "Took off the gloves. It's all over social media already. Someone live streamed the whole thing." "Good. This is war now. You know that, right? They're going to come after you with everything they have." I started the truck and pulled out of the country club parking lot for the last time. Let them come. The war lasted exactly 72 hours. Monday morning, I woke up to find my business accounts frozen, my credit cards canceled, and a restraining order taped to my front door. Vanessa wasn't playing games anymore. By noon, Child Protective Services had been called anonymous tip about an unstable father who'd shown violent tendencies and erratic behavior. They interviewed Sophie for 2 hours while I sat in my lawyer's office watching my life get dissected by bureaucrats. Tuesday brought the media. Somehow the story had leaked beyond social media into the real news. Local architect's public meltdown exposes affair. Channel 7 parked a van outside my house. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune called 6 times. But Wednesday was when things got interesting. I was in my office trying to salvage what was left of my business when Marlene Mollery walked in without knocking. "We have a problem," she announced just one. "They're running. Trent and your wife. They've been liquidating assets, closing accounts, preparing to disappear." I looked up from the stack of legal papers that had consumed my morning. "Running where?" "Cayman Islands. Trent's been moving money offshore for months. Not just his money, but client funds from Morrison and Associates. Your wife helped him do it. That's embezzlement. That's federal prison time if we can prove it." Marlene sat down across from my desk. "My private investigator tracked them to a storage unit in Bloomington. They're planning to leave tonight." "How do you know?" "Because Trent's an idiot who thinks he's smarter than everyone else. He booked flights under his real name." I leaned back in my chair thinking, what do you want from me? "Help. They have Sophie." My blood turned to ice. "What?" "Trent picked her up from school an hour ago. Told the office he was her stepfather. That there was a family emergency. By the time the school called you, they were gone." I was already reaching for my keys. "Where the storage unit?" "My investigator is watching them now, but he can't do anything without risking Sophie's safety." We took Marlene's BMW racing through Minneapolis traffic while she filled in the details. Trent and Vanessa had been planning their escape for weeks. Fake passports, offshore accounts, a new life in a country without extradition treaties. The only thing they didn't plan for was getting caught, Marlene said, taking a corner fast enough to make the tires squeal. Now they're desperate, and desperate people make stupid choices. The storage facility was in an industrial area near the airport. Rows of identical metal buildings surrounded by chain-link fencing. Marlene's investigator, a thin man with tired eyes, met us at the entrance. "Unit 247, he said without preamble. "They've been loading boxes into a rental truck for the past hour. The girl's with them, but she doesn't look happy about it." "How many exits?" "2. Front gate where we came in. Back gate that leads to the highway. If they're smart, they'll use the back." "Are they armed?" "Don't know. Assume yes." I called 911 from the parking lot, but the dispatcher said it would be 20 minutes before units could respond. Sophie didn't have 20 minutes. There. Marlene pointed to a white rental truck parked outside a unit halfway down the row. That's them. We could hear voices echoing off the metal walls. Trent shouting orders, Vanessa arguing back, and underneath it all, Sophie's voice raised in protest. I walked toward the storage unit like I was approaching a construction site, methodical, purposeful, aware of every potential hazard. Marlene followed, her heels clicking on the concrete. Sophie, I called out. Sophie, are you okay? The voices stopped. Then Trent appeared at the mouth of the storage unit, looking nothing like the polished businessman who'd charmed his way through Minneapolis society. His nose was still swollen from our encounter at the country club, and his expensive clothes were wrinkled and stained with sweat. Drew, he said, forcing a smile. What a surprise. Let my daughter go. Your daughter is fine. She's with her mother. Vanessa stepped into view, one hand on Sophie's shoulder. My daughter looked scared but unhurt, her school backpack still slung over her shoulder. Dad, she called out, but Vanessa's grip tightened. This doesn't have to be difficult, Vanessa said. We're just going on a little trip. Kidnapping is a federal crime. Kidnapping? Trent laughed. She's with her mother. That's not kidnapping. Taking a minor across international borders without the father's consent is behind them. I could see the storage unit was nearly empty. Just a few boxes and the remnants of whatever life they'd built on lies and stolen money. You don't understand, Vanessa said. And for the first time since this all started, she sounded genuinely desperate. We can't stay here. Not after what you did. My career is over. Trent's business is finished. Everyone we know thinks we're criminals. You are criminals. We never meant for it to go this far, she continued. It was supposed to be simple. A quiet divorce, a fresh start. But you had to make it public. Had to humiliate us in front of everyone. You humiliated yourselves. I just provided the lighting. Trent stepped forward and I could see the gun in his hand. Small chrome, probably something he'd bought to make himself feel powerful. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You're going to walk away. Both of you give us a 2-hour head start and nobody gets hurt. And Sophie comes with us. New life, new country, new opportunities over my dead body. That can be arranged. The gun was shaking in his hand. Whatever else Trent was, he wasn't a killer, just a scared man who'd run out of options. You know what your problem is, Trent? I said, taking a step closer. You think you're the smartest guy in the room. You always have, but you made one crucial mistake. What's that? You underestimated me. I nodded toward the storage unit behind him, where smoke was beginning to seep from under the roll-up door. What the hell? Trent spun around as the fire alarm began to wail. While he was distracted, I lunged forward, grabbing for the gun. We went down hard on the concrete, rolling and fighting for control of the weapon. Behind us, Vanessa was screaming and Sophie was running toward the parking lot where Marlene waited. The gun went off, the bullet ricocheting off the metal ceiling with a sound like a church bell. Trent was stronger than he looked, but desperation makes people stupid, and he was running on pure panic now. I got my hand on the gun, twisted it away from him, and threw it as far as I could across the parking lot. Then I stood up and looked down at the man who tried to steal my life. It's over, Trent. He was crying now. Mascara, black tears that mixed with the blood from his nose. You don't understand. We owe people money. Bad people. If we don't disappear, then you should have thought of that before you started embezzling client funds. Police sirens were getting closer. The smoke from the storage unit was getting thicker. Whatever I'd done to create that distraction was working better than expected. Vanessa was still standing by the truck, looking lost and broken in a way I'd never seen before. The confident, manipulative woman who'd planned my destruction was gone, replaced by someone who looked like a scared child. Drew, she said quietly. I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. I did love you once, maybe, but not enough. The first police car arrived as the fire department was putting out the small blaze I'd started with a cigarette lighter and some old newspapers from the storage unit. It was a small fire, just enough smoke to create confusion, but the symbolism felt right. Sophie ran to me as the paramedics checked her over, throwing her arms around my waist like she used to do when she was little. Dad, I was so scared. I know, sweetheart, but it's over now. Are they going to jail? I looked over at Trent, handcuffed and bleeding in the back of a police car, and Vanessa, being questioned by detectives who'd found enough evidence in the storage unit to put them both away for a very long time. Yeah, I said. I think they are. The trial lasted 6 months. Trent got 8 years for embezzlement, fraud, and kidnapping. Vanessa got 5 years as an accessory. Plus, she lost her PR license and had to pay restitution to all the clients whose money they'd stolen. I got my life back. Sophie and I moved to a smaller house in a better neighborhood, closer to her school and farther from the memories. My business recovered. Turned out that publicly humiliating cheaters at charity galas was actually good for my reputation among divorced men who needed architectural services. Marlene and I became friends, bonded by our shared experience of marriage to sociopaths. She helped me navigate the legal system and I designed her new law office when she started her own practice specializing in divorce cases. You know what the funny thing is? She said one day reviewing the plans for her conference room. They actually thought they were going to get away with it. Arrogance, I said. They were so convinced I was stupid. They never considered I might fight back. Well, you certainly did that. 6 months after the trial ended, I was working late in my office when Sophie called. Dad, there's something on the news about Mom. I turned on the television to see a reporter standing outside the women's correctional facility in Shakopee talking about an incident involving my ex-wife and another inmate. Apparently, Vanessa's people skills weren't serving her well in prison. Is she okay? Sophie asked. She's fine. Prison's just a different kind of networking opportunity. Dad, that's mean, but accurate. Sophie laughed, and I realized it was the first time I'd heard her really laugh since this whole nightmare started. Are you happy, Dad? I looked around my office, smaller than before, but mine. Clean, honest, built on work I'd done with my own hands and ideas I'd created with my own mind. Yeah, sweetheart. I think I am. Good. You deserve to be happy. So do you. I am happy. Finally. That night, I sat on the porch of our new house, drinking a beer and watching the sunset paint the Minneapolis skyline in shades of gold and red. My wedding ring was somewhere at the bottom of a lake. And I'd never been more glad to lose something in my life. My phone buzzed with a text from Cal, drinks tomorrow. I'm buying. I texted back, you're always buying. But yes, celebrating, living. I finished my beer and went inside where Sophie was doing homework at the kitchen table and the house smelled like the dinner we'd cooked together.